Welcome back to Loss, Love, and all the other shit in between. I'm Sean, and today we're diving into something most people spend their whole lives running from, and that's past trauma. Not the soft focus, spiritual version, not the time heals everything nonsense, the real thing. The stuff that shapes how you love, how you trust, how you react, and how you build or break your own peace. And this episode, we're calling it Sink or Swim, turning pain into power. Because when it comes to trauma, there are only really two choices that life gives you. You either let the past pull you under, or you decide you're done drowning in what hurt you. Today, in episode 3, we're breaking it down raw, honest, and straight. No sugarcoating, no fancy self-help words, just truth, tools, and the kind of clarity that helps you finally breathe again. Now let's get into it. Trauma isn't soft. Trauma isn't poetic. Trauma isn't a quiet little memory in a corner that disappears when you're strong enough. Trauma is loud, messy, stubborn, and it doesn't care about your age, your finances, your relationship status, or your so-called emotional maturity. Trauma shows up wherever it wants, and most of us have learned to pretend we didn't notice it. But sooner or later, the past catches up. That hurt you fought, you buried, it doesn't go away. It just waits for its moment. Now here you are, 40 plus, trying to build something real, trying to love for real, trying not to repeat old patterns, trying not to push people away, trying not to pick the same partners, and trying not to drown in your own reactions. And trauma is the invisible weight tied to your ankle. Past trauma is not your fault, but it is your responsibility now. That's not blame, that's power. The moment you acknowledge your past and choose to face it, you stop being a victim and start becoming the author of your future. The trauma gives you two choices. You either sink, which is repeat patterns, numb your feelings, pretend everything is fine. And then there's swim. You face the truth, you understand what shaped you, you learn from it and heal, and you move forward with clarity and choice. Trauma isn't only breakups or divorces, it's losing someone who mattered deeply, a parent, a sibling, a partner, or a close friend. But it's also betrayal, abandonment, sudden loss, or life-changing events that left you reeling. Now these experiences shape how safe you feel, how you trust, and how you love. You might notice yourself overreacting to small challenges, withdrawing from people, or repeating patterns you promised yourself you wouldn't. Recognizing these behaviors as trauma's influence, not personal flaws, is the first step towards change. Trauma creates an inner voice that says, I'm not enough. I can't trust anyone. I don't deserve love. These are echoes of past pain, not truths about who you are today. Ignoring trauma might feel easier, but it quietly shapes your choices, your relationships, and your reactions. Facing allows you to break patterns, build healthier connections, and take back control of your life. Trauma also appears in everyday moments. A fleeting argument, a delayed response from something you or someone you love, or a sudden pang of grief. Recognizing this influence is the first step towards swimming rather than sinking. Healing doesn't erase the past. It gives you the power to respond differently, love differently, and live differently. Each conscious choice to act with awareness is a stroke towards freedom, clarity, and peace. Trauma affects more than your emotional state. It reshapes how you perceive the world, interpret behavior, and expect people to treat you. That subtle unease you feel in conversations, that hesitation before trusting someone, or the constant self-checking in relationships, these are not flaws. They are the past talking. They are a result of system that once had to protect you in unsafe circumstances. Your relationships carry the weight. You may pick partners who mirror unresolved pain, or stay in situations that feel familiar even if they hurt. You might notice patterns, pushing people away before they leave, clinging when you're scared, or testing boundaries to confirm whether others will betray you. Understanding these patterns is crucial. They're not who you are today, but they are what your past trained you to do. Awareness is the first step in changing them. Self-image is another area where trauma quietly rules. You might undervalue yourself or doubt your ability to deserve good things. Vulnerability may feel dangerous. Saying I need help or I want love might trigger fear because trauma taught your brain that leaning on others could hurt you. Recognizing these messages, or what they are, not truths, is liberating. You can reject them, reframe them, and rebuild a healthier internal dialogue. Your body remembers trauma, even when your mind tries to move on. You might feel tension, restlessness, or unexplained anxiety, sleepless nights, headaches, and a constant readiness for a conflict are signs that your nervous system is still holding on to old dangers. Acknowledging your body's response is part of taking back control, learning to calm it, breathe, and reassure yourself that the present is safe. Trauma also shapes expectations and boundaries. It may make you settle for less than you deserve, demand perfection from others, or avoid emotional intimacy out of fear. Awareness of these patterns gives you the power to adjust them consciously, rather than continuing unconsciously. Choosing to swim is about taking back control of your life. It's about facing discomfort, sitting with emotions, and acting with intention. It's about loving yourself fully, even when your past screams that you can't. Each small choice, pausing before reacting, noticing a trigger, or speaking your truth, compounds over time. These are the strokes that move you closer to freedom. Swimming isn't easy. It's slow, deliberate, sometimes exhausting, but every stroke brings you closer to clarity. Every pause teaches you self-awareness. Every honest conversation strengthens your inner authority. Trauma may always be part of your story, but it doesn't have to control your life. Through this process, you begin to notice subtle changes. Reactions soften, patience grows, boundaries strengthen. Trust becomes possible, and slowly the world feels less threatening. Trauma becomes a teacher rather than a jailer. Ultimately, in this section, it's more about awareness, ownership, and courage. Trauma shaped you, but it does not define you. You can learn to swim. You can learn to move with purpose, love more fully, and navigate life with the kind of clarity trauma once denied you. Trauma doesn't ask for permission to follow you into adulthood. It doesn't wait until you're ready or until life seems stable. It can appear in the middle of a quiet day, in an argument you didn't see coming, or in a memory that pops up out of nowhere. Sometimes it's subtle, showing up as tension in your body, a flicker of anxiety, or a moment of doubt. Other times it's overwhelming, exploding in ways that make you question your reactions or even your own sanity. Trauma sneaks in quietly at first. Small irritations, fleeting fears, moments of discomfort, and then suddenly it's everywhere. It can infiltrate relationships, work friendships, family interactions, and even how you see yourself in the mirror. The first step to swimming, instead of sinking, is understanding exactly how trauma shows up. It's not about blame. It's not about feeling weak. It's about recognizing the ways the past shapes your present so you can start making conscious choices instead of reacting automatically. Now, one of the clearest ways trauma manifests is through your reactions. You might notice yourself snapping, withdrawing, or feeling angry when the situation doesn't seem to warrant it. Maybe you freeze or overthink endlessly, caught in loops that feel impossible to escape. The truth is, you're not reacting to the present moment. You're reacting to your past. Your brain has been trained to see danger, even in safe environments, and your nervous system is constantly on high alert. The hypervigilance is exhausting. You may feel like you're overreacting, being too sensitive, or out of control. But those responses are your body and mind working exactly as they learn to survive. They are the echoes of past experiences, protecting you in ways where one necessary. The challenge is that these old survival mechanisms often longer serve you, and yet they keep showing up, reminding you that trauma doesn't just disappear. Now, relationships are often the clearest mirror of unresolved trauma. Trauma can make it difficult to trust. You might find yourself trusting too fast, looking for connection where it doesn't exist, or pulling away before anyone has the chance to hurt you. You may repeat old patterns, clinging, testing your partner's loyalty, or leaving relationships preemptively to avoid pain. It's not a character flaw, it's a survival mechanism. Your past taught you to expect disappointment, betrayal, or abandonment, and those lessons learned when you were younger and more vulnerable can follow you into your adult life. They influence how you communicate, how you handle conflict, and even how you interpret affection. Awareness changes that dynamic, recognizing that these patterns are trauma speaking, not truth about the present, gives you the ability to consciously choose a different path. You can set health boundaries, communicate clearly, and make decisions based on the current reality instead of old wounds. Now, trauma isn't just a mental or emotional experience, it's physical. Your body remembers what your mind tried to forget. Tension in your shoulders, your neck, your jaw, headaches that appear out of nowhere, sleep disturbances, stomach knots. These are all common ways trauma shows up. Even when your conscious mind feels fine, your body is holding the past for you. You might notice feeling constantly on edge, bracing for conflict, or sensing danger where there is none. Trauma trains your nervous system to expect threats, and even when the danger has passed, your body is still in survival mode. Recognizing these physical responses are essential. There are signals from your system telling you that healing work is needed. Listening to your body, acknowledging its messages, and understanding that these responses are normal reactions to abnormal experiences is a key to move forward. Trauma often distorts how we value ourselves. You might undervalue your own needs, settle for less than what you deserve, or believe you're not worthy of love, respect, or success. On the flip side, you may demand perfection from yourself or others because past experiences taught you that disappointment is inevitable. These behaviors are not signs of weakness. They're coping strategies, learning over time to protect yourself from more pain. The first step is healing, is understanding that your past shaped these patterns. Once you see that clearly, you can start rewriting the rules for yourself. You can set boundaries, value yourself appropriately, and expect healthy treatment from others, all without guilt or self-doubt. Trauma also affects how we communicate. Some people hold everything in, bottling up emotions until they explode. Others over-explain, avoid confrontation, or talk in circles to protect themselves from vulnerability. These patterns were survival tools at some point, but in adult life they can damage relationships and create misunderstandings. By recognizing these patterns as products of trauma, you can begin to communicate differently. Awareness allows you to respond calmly rather than react impulsively. You can speak clearly, set boundaries, and express needs without fear of judgment. Communication is key, and it also becomes a tool for connection instead of triggering old fears. Trauma rewires your beliefs. You may find yourself thinking, love is dangerous, people will always leave, I am too much, I am not enough, I have to earn affection or approval. These beliefs are not truths. They are echoes of past experiences designed to protect you when you were younger. Recognizing them as old programming allows you to choose new, healthier beliefs that match your current life. It's about creating a mindset that supports growth, connection, and self-respect. Even if you've achieved professional success, you've built confidence, or you've reached personal milestones, trauma often whispers that you're still that hurt, insecure version of yourself. It undermines your confidence, makes self-love feel inconstant or impossible. Healing trauma gives you the chance to believe in yourself and in your self-worth, not just in theory, but in how you actually live your life. Now, that section is about blame. It's about clarity. Recognizing how trauma shaped your behaviors, thoughts, and feelings, allowing you to step out of automatic reactions and into conscious choices. Noticing triggers, understanding their roots, and deciding how to act differently gives you the control over your personal life instead of letting the past dictate to you. Now, why does this matter? Understanding how trauma shows up is critical because awareness is the starting point for change. Once you recognize these patterns, you can pause before reacting, you can create boundaries where you were once passive, you can communicate more clearly and confidently, you can approach love, work, and friendships with intention rather than fear. Now, this is the difference between sinking or swimming. Trauma may have shaped you, but it doesn't have to define you. You can see clearly how the past sneaks into your present and consciously decide not to let it control your future. Now, healing from trauma is not about saying affirmations, thinking positively, or pretending the past didn't happen. It's not about the quick fixes, vibes, or social media motivational quotes. Healing is work. Honest, messy, uncomfortable, constant work. It's about understanding what happened to you, how it shaped your reactions, and learning practical ways to respond differently. The good news is that help exists. Real, effective approaches that can guide you through the process of understanding and processing your past, so it doesn't continue to run your present. Now, in this section, it's about doing therapy exercises on your own. It's about giving you clarity on what works, how it works, and why it can change the trajectory of your life, especially your relationships and self-perception. Now, therapy, real talk. Therapy isn't lying on a couch recounting your childhood endlessly in a structured, guided space where a trained professional helps you identify how your past experience influences your current thoughts, feelings, and actions. Therapy allows you to see patterns in relationships and reactions, understand your triggers that seem irritational, reframe old beliefs that limit self-worth, and develop strategies for responding differently to situations. Now, there is different forms of therapy that suit different people, and sometimes a mix is best. What matters is constant engagement and a professional who helps you face the truth safely. Therapy isn't a luxury. It's an investment in your freedom from old patterns. And I know a lot of people look at it and they believe that it's going to cost me so much money and I don't have the time. You need to make time. You know, I'm in my own personal life. A very close friend of mine is helping me, and there's certain therapies that I've looked at and I was offered, like the next one I'm going to talk about is CBT training. And it kind of affected me in the way that I didn't want to be sitting on a team talk with 30 individuals, not talking about my own personal experiences, just talking about how you cope with certain situations, which is something I'm going to revisit. But at this moment in time, I wanted to deal with something face on, one-on-one, real talk, trying to get to the bottom of my own issues so I can then move on and live more healthier, especially mentally. Now, the second one is CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. It's one of the most widely used approaches for trauma. CBT focuses on recognizing and challenging the thought patterns that cause pain, anxiety, or overreactions. It's practical and action-orientated. For example, you may notice recurring thoughts like, I'll never be loved, or I always mess things up. CBT helps you examine the evidence of these thoughts, challenge their validity, and replace them with more accurate, helpful thinking. Over time, these mental shifts reduce overthinking, impulsive reactions, and self-critical behavior. CBT is particularly effective for anxiety and panic caused by trauma triggers, overthinking and intrusive thoughts, improving communication and self-reflection, breaking cycles of negative self-talk that affect relationships. Now, this is the one I'm going to be doing next. EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. EMDR is one of the most talked about trauma therapies because it works differently. It helps your brain process traumatic memories without forcing you to relive the full intensity of that pain. Through guided eye movements or other forms of bilateral stimulation, EMDR allows your mind to integrate past experiences in a way that reduces emotional charge. Many people who have EMDR report reduced flashbacks or intrusive memories, less intensive emotional reactions to triggers, a sense of closure or resolution with offense that you couldn't face before, and greater emotional stability in relationships. EMDR can be intense, but it's highly effective for trauma stored in memory, especially when old experiences continue to shape present life. The next one is somatic therapy. Trauma lives in the body as well as in the mind. Somatic therapy addresses the physical manifestations of trauma, such as tension, hypervigilance, or shutdown. Techniques include grounding exercises to bring awareness to the present, breathing practices to release stored tension, and physical movement to help the body release old stress. Now, your body remembers trauma even when your conscious mind doesn't. Somatic therapy reconnects your mind and body, helping you notice when stress or fear is being stored. Physically, it's particularly effective for panic attacks or anxiety, chronic muscle tension or headaches, feeling disconnected from your body or emotions, learning to respond instead of freeze or overreact. And then there's psychodynamic therapy. Psychodynamic therapy focuses on the deeper roots of trauma, the long-term patterns that influence your relationships, self-worth, and emotional regulation. It explores early attachment experiences, repeated relational patterns, unconscious motivations that drive behavior. Now, this therapy is slower, reflective, and often transformative for understanding long-standing self-esteem issues, attachment struggles, or repeated relationship challenges. Psychodynamic therapy gives you insight into why you react a certain way and provides a framework for consciously changing those responses. Group therapy and support systems promote healing that doesn't happen in isolation. Group therapy supports circles or trauma-informed communities, which allows you to hear that you're not alone in your experiences. Practice healthy communication in a safe environment. You learn strategies from others who are also navigating trauma. You gain perspective and validation for feelings you might have thought were unique or wrong. Community and connection are vital. Trauma often leaves people isolated, but intentional engagement with supportive groups helps rebuild trust, empathy, and understanding. While professional guidance is critical, lifestyle practices can support your healing process. Sleep. Trauma often disrupts rest. Prioritize routines that improve quality sleep. Nutrition. What you eat affects your brain and nervous system. Balanced meals stabilize mood and energy. Exercise helps release tension, improves your mood, and reconnects you with your body. Mindfulness practices like meditation, journaling, or simple reflection increase awareness of patterns and triggers. Boundaries, learning to say no, and protect your energy prevents re-traumatization. These aren't cures by themselves, but create a foundation that makes therapy and other interventions more effective. The single most important factor in healing trauma is consistency. Progress is rarely linear. You will face setbacks, triggers, and moments of doubt. Healing requires persistence, showing up for yourself repeatedly, even when it's uncomfortable. Consistency builds resilience, rewires thought patterns, and allows trauma's influence over your life to diminish over time. Commitment also means being honest with yourself. Acknowledge discomfort, recognize triggers, and take steps forward, even when it feels like small progress. Every deliberate choice is a step towards swimming instead of sinking. Effective trauma treatment doesn't just help you cope, it transforms your life. It allows you to engage in relationships with clarity and confidence, communicate without fear or overreaction, trust yourself and others in a measured way, love freely without being haunted by old wounds. The work you do now lays the foundation for a future where past trauma no longer dictates choices, reactions, or self-perception. Healing allows you to reclaim control over your life, your relationships, and your emotional well-being. Healing trauma is not a single step or a quick fix. It's a journey, sometimes messy, often challenging, and ultimately empowering. The right therapy, consistent effort, supportive community, and personal awareness can change your life. It gives you the tools to respond rather than to react, to connect without fear, and to love yourself and others in healthier ways. No matter your age, no matter how entrenched your patterns are, healing is possible. It's not about erasing your past. It's about understanding it, processing it, and making conscious choices that lead to a life free from its grip. Trauma doesn't just affect you internally. It affects how you show up in every relationship. Your past experiences shape your responses, your expectations, and your comfort with closeness. Healing trauma, therefore, doesn't just make you feel better, it transforms the way you connect with the people around you, including the way you love, trust, and communicate. When you face trauma, you're essentially learning to swim while holding onto a weight you carried for years. As you release that weight, relationships change in ways you might not have imagined. Healing allows you to show up as your authentic self, without fear, without pretense, and without the old patterns dictating your interactions. One of the most immediate effects of healing trauma is an ability to set and maintain healthy boundaries. Trauma often leaves people unsure of where their needs end and someone else's begin. You may have tolerated disrespect, overextended yourself, or avoided saying no to prevent conflict. Healing shifts this. You begin to recognize your limits without guilt. Say no without fear or losing relationships. Protect your energy without pushing people away unnecessarily. And allow others to respect your needs while still showing empathy. Boundaries are not walls. They are guidelines for how you want to be treated. They create safety and clarity, which in turn fosters healthier connection and reduces the cycle of fear and reactivity that trauma often perpetuates. Trauma affects the way you communicate. Before healing, triggers can hijack your responses, leading to arguments, withdrawal, or overcompensation. You may have avoided conflict or conversely irritated it unnecessarily. Through healing, you develop awareness. You notice triggers before they spiral into reactions. You pause to understand your emotional state before responding. You listen actively rather than defensively. You articulate needs, fears, and boundaries with clarity. Effective communication is a skill, and trauma can make it feel impossible. Healing is about practice and patience, showing up in relationships with intention rather than reaction. When you communicate clearly, misunderstandings decrease and connection grows stronger. Trauma often leads to distorted patterns in romantic relationships. Some people seek validation constantly, trying to fill gaps left by past losses. And others may avoid intimacy altogether, afraid of being hurt again. Healing allows you to approach love differently. You stop seeking love solely to validate your worth. You stop attempting to fix or rescue partners to fill your own void. You stop repeating the same unhealthy patterns in every single relationship. When you've done this work to process trauma, love becomes a choice rather than a fear-driven reaction. You can engage fully, giving and receiving love without compromise or self-sabotage. Intimacy, emotional or physical, becomes safer and more fulfilling because you're no longer carrying unprocessed past pain into the present. Unhealed trauma often amplifies emotional highs and lows. Small disagreements can feel like rejection. Delayed responses can trigger panic, and minor conflicts can spiral out of proportion. Healing trauma develops resilience. Emotional responses become proportional to the situation, and you can tolerate discomfort without spiraling. You manage stress in relationships with projecting past pain into others. This stability is attractive in every type of relationship. Friends, partners, colleagues, and family members respond positively when interactions are grounded in awareness rather than fear or reaction. Emotional resilience doesn't mean you won't feel hurt or understand it. You respond thoughtfully rather than being hijacked by past trauma. One of the hardest areas for trauma survivors is trust. Betrayal, loss, or abuse leaves deep imprints that make opening up feel dangerous. Healing trauma teaches you how to rebuild trust. You learn to differentiate present reality from past experience. You develop healthy expectations of others. You understand that vulnerability can be safe when approached consciously. This doesn't mean trusting blindly. It means engaging in relationships with informed awareness. You can be vulnerable without fear that every act of openness will end in hurt. Trust becomes a tool for connection rather than a risk that keeps you isolated. The way you treat yourself sets the tone for how others treat you. Trauma often leaves people feeling unworthy, undervalued, or undeserving of love and respect. Healing changes this perspective. You begin to recognize your worth constantly. You stop tolerating toxic or unfulfilling dynamics. You make choices based on self-respect rather than fear of loss. Self-love is not selfish. It's a foundation. When you value yourself, relationships naturally improve because you bring clarity, confidence, and boundaries into every interaction. People respond to the energy you carry. Healed individuals attract healthier, more genuine connections. Healing trauma develops empathy, not only for others, but for yourself. You start to understand everyone carries unseen struggles. Reactions are often rooted in past experiences. And patience and compassion foster stronger, longer-lasting bonds. This perspective transforms conflicts from battlegrounds into opportunities for understanding. You learn to navigate disagreements with grace, communicate needs clearly, and forgive without losing your sense of self. Compassion does not mean tolerating abuse. It means choosing awareness over reaction. Trauma often runs in families. The ways you were hurt, the beliefs you internalized, and the reactions you learn can pass to the next generation. Healing allows you to break these cycles. You model healthier emotional regulation. You set examples of boundaries and respect. You show others that the past does not have to dictate your future. By facing your trauma and changing how you relate to others, you not only improve your own life, but also positively impact those around you, creating a ripple effect that can last for generations. The results of healing trauma aren't theoretical, they're practical. When trauma is addressed and managed, arguments are shorter, less intense, and more productive. Emotional intimacy is easier and more fulfilling. Decision-making is guided by clarity, not fear. And friendships become deeper, more trusting, and mutually supportive. Healing allows relationships to become a source of growth and connection instead of stress and reactivation of past pain. It gives your life where connection is chosen and valued rather than feared. The takeaway: the true impact of healing trauma is seen in relationships, how you show up, how you respond, and how you love. Healing isn't a magical switch. It's ongoing, messy, and requires consistency. But every step you take, it brings you closer to clear boundaries without guilt, honest communication without fear, love that is freely given and safely received. Emotional resilience that allows stability in chaos, trust and vulnerability that build deeper connections, and self-respect and self-love that guides choices. Swimming through trauma doesn't just transform your inner world, it transforms every connection you have. It allows you to engage in relationships without repeating old patterns, without fear, and without carrying unnecessary weight from the past. When you commit to healing, your relationship reflects it. They become healthier, more fulfilling, and more aligned with the person you're becoming. This is where the payoff is real. The work you do on yourself ripples outward, creating better experiences, stronger bonds, and a life where love is something you give and receive freely. Now, if you've made it this far into the episode, that means you're already taking action. You're listening. You're engaging with the idea that trauma doesn't have to define you. You're acknowledging that your past has shaped you, but it no longer controls you. And that alone, that is power. Now, in this final section, isn't about repeating what you already know. It's about seeing the possibilities, what life looks like on the other side of trauma, what swimming feels like when you're finally left that sinking behind, and why every messy, uncomfortable step is worth it. Recognizing your strength. Trauma can make you feel weak or broken, but surviving it proves your strength. You've endured losses, betrayals, pain, and fear. You've navigated situations that would have crushed many, and you're still here. That's resilience. Every moment you face a trigger and don't let it take control is proof that you're swimming. Every step towards understanding, reflection, and speaking your truth is a stroke forward. Strength isn't about never struggling. It's about continuing despite the struggle and knowing that that is empowering because you already know you can survive the storms. Reframing the past is healing, which allows you to take control of your past, every loss, betrayal, and painful moment, and reframe it. This doesn't erase the pain, but it gives you control over how it shapes your present. Instead of thinking, this happened to me, so I'm doomed to repeat it, say, this happened, I felt the pain, I learned, and now I can act differently. This shift transforms trauma from a chain that holds you down into a teacher showing you what to avoid, what to embrace, and what to nurture. Awareness is power. Understanding your triggers and patterns stop you from being a slave to them. Awareness lets you respond instant of react. Step out of destructive cycles. Make conscious decisions in relationships and life. Notice old patterns before they take over your life. This freedom is practical. It's pausing, breathing, and choosing your next move instead of being hijacked by the past. Awareness is your paddle. It helps you swim instead of sinking. Trauma often teaches you that love is risky. Healing allows you to flip that. Choose love even when fear whispers. Approach connections with curiosity, not suspicion. Trust yourself to navigate boundaries. Allow closeness without losing yourself. Choosing love doesn't mean perfection or no pain, but it does guarantee authenticity, connection, and the ability to feel joy without constantly bracing for hurt. Healing strengthens your sense of self. You trust your instincts, value your opinions, and you stand in your power. You are no longer defined what others did to you or moments that you wish you could erase. Confidence comes from surviving, learning, and showing up for yourself. It means you can handle life's challenges, navigate relationships without repeating the past, set boundaries without guilt, express emotions without fear. This confidence radiates. People notice. It draws meaningful connections into your life naturally. Now, the ripple effect. Your healing affects everyone around you. When you take responsibility for your trauma, your relationships improve. Communication becomes clearer. Friends, family, and colleagues learn that the past doesn't have to define them. You become a model of the resilience. One person's choice to heal creates ripples that touch countless lives. Now, the reality of swimming. Swimming through trauma isn't a fairy tale. It's messy. There will be days when the weight feels heavier than ever. You'll face triggers on old wounds that make you question if it's worth it. But every stroke makes you stronger. Every pause to breathe, reflect, or seek support keeps you moving. Healing isn't linear. Some days feels like progress, some like setbacks. That's normal. The key is to keep swimming, trusting that consistency carries you forward. Now, the vision for the future. Picture life where trauma no longer runs the show. You engage in love without fear. You communicate clearly and calmly. You can trust yourself and others while keeping boundaries. Experience joy, peace, and intimacy. And pursue dreams without old pain weighing you down. This is not fantasy. Every small step, every insight, every choice to swim builds this life. If you think, I'm too far gone, or I don't have what it takes, stop. That's trauma talking. You've survived the hardest moments. Surviving is proof that you can swim. Take it day by day. Each time you face discomfort, reflect on a trigger, or have an honest conversation with yourself, you move forward. You don't need perfection, just persistence. Healing is courage in action. It's messy, demanding, and sometimes exhausting, and yet it's freeing. So here's the truth. Trauma doesn't define you unless you let it. You've survived patterns, reactions, misunderstandings, and pain. But you're still here. You're still standing. You're still breathing. You're still capable of choosing. Sink or swim. The moment you choose to swim, you've already won. Every stroke brings you closer to power, clarity, freedom, love, and peace. Take a deep breath. Stand tall. Now stand tall and say, I am not my past. I am not my pain. I am power. I am love. I am enough. And I'm swimming. Thank you for listening or watching. Lost love and all the other shit in between. Thank you for showing up for yourself, trusting this process, and committing to your growth. Keep swimming. Keep choosing love. Keep embracing life. And if you're ready, come back for the next episode. There's always more clarity, connection, and possibility waiting for you. Swimming turns pain into power, fear into love, and every hard-won moment into a life fully lived. You got this. Thank you.